What's up?
Yo, listen, thank you for chatting to me. I feel kind of like I should be singing you happy birthday, or I should have baked a cake that I should be wheeling in right now because it is 25 years exactly since the debut album by Foo Fighters came out. My first question for you, Dave, is do you remember where you were on this day in 1995?
Oh God, I don't actually. I wonder what we were doing. I want to say we were probably on tour, but I honestly don't remember. I remember the feeling of the time. I don't remember where we were.
I don't think you played a show. It's weird. You're right. You were doing loads and loads of gigs, but there was like a month break around July where nothing is on Setlist FM. But it came out. It feels right to me to celebrate this album because I've been listening to it a lot over the last, I don't know, 2 months or something, and I've fallen back in love with it. I just think it's so raw and it's kind of unlike anything else in your musical canon with any other band. This just exists on its own almost. And I wonder when the last time you actually listened to it in full was.
Oh my God, I don't. Not in the last 20 years. It's been a long time.
Wow.
I
Really?
yeah. I mean, I've heard songs from it, and of course, we've played songs from it, but I haven't sat down with it and listened to it front to back in decades, probably. First of all, it wasn't intended to be an album. It was really just kind of an experiment. But also, it was recorded at the time where I wasn't doing anything. I Nirvana was over, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do musically with the rest of my life, but I'd always recorded songs by myself. Usually, when I would record songs by myself, it was either in my basement with my friend Barrett Jones or with some other friends from Washington, D.C., but it was never taken so seriously that it was to be like a major release. So when I went in to record that, it was, I think it was maybe 6 days or something. I did it really quickly without the intention of it becoming an album.
Yeah, but and here we are 25 years later,
I
It's
know it's
crazy.
it's weird when I listen to it still to this day. If I hear "This Is a Call" or "I'll Stick Around" or "Big Me," it still sounds like a demo to me. It doesn't sound like some production. It just sounds kind of like a demo tape that I did, and so I
I
almost
kind of like that though. I like the
yeah.
hiss in it, and I like the fact that if you listen close, you can hear little edits and things like that. It's not a perfect sonic recording, but it has this charm.
When Barrett and I were recording that first record, we I don't think we were thinking of that because we were doing 3 songs a day, and so we were capturing the moment because we didn't have time to spare. But yeah, I mean it's loose and it's raw, and by today's standards, oh my God, I mean it's the way we made it is considered kind of archaic now, but it's a trip. And I mean, the place where we recorded it was a really unusual studio that was right down the street from my house. Right towards the end of Nirvana, we were touring Europe. That was the last tour that we did. We had the sound check song that we were doing. Kurt came up with the riff and he came up with the melody, and we would jam this thing at sound check. And we kind of knew that it was a new song, but it wasn't. I mean, we had no intention of immediately recording it or making another album because I think In Utero had just come out around that time, maybe a few months before or a year before. Anyway, so on a break from touring, Kurt said, "Hey, I want to find a studio because I want to record that song." And so we looked at a couple studios around Seattle, and I knew about this place that was, maybe 5 blocks from my house. I lived north of the city in an area called Richmond Beach. And I'd heard about this studio that was really funky because it was underground. It was like under this guy's house built into the side of the hill. So we went in there and recorded that last song that Nirvana had. And I don't know how many days we booked, but we spent a couple days messing around. And then one day we actually recorded that song. So
And that was You Know You're Right.
Yeah, You Know You're Right. Yeah, that song. So after the band was over, having made friends with the people at the studio, I thought like, well, maybe I'll just go down there and record some stuff rather than doing it in Barrett's basement, rather than doing it on an 8-track. I'll go I'll be really professional about it and go to this 24-track studio for 6 days.
So can you talk to me about that period then? Because the crazy thing is that I went back through old melody makers and NMEs and stuff like that, and it's 8 months from when Kurt passes away in April 94. The first mention of Dave Grohl has a new project is in the last week of December 1994. So it's 8 months.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of interested in where were you in those 8 months? Where was your head at? Who were you hanging out with? What happened to you in order to actually get through to this point where you had these new songs?
So after Kurt passed away, there was a period of everyone just kind of like hiding from the world. And, our whole world was turned upside down. So there was grief, there was mourning. We all kind of rallied together. I remember hanging out with Chris Novoselic, and, the two of us sort of making sure that we were okay. And then I did a little bit of traveling. I remember I took a trip to the UK. I don't know. I just kind of did a lot of like driving around and thinking. And eventually I started getting calls from people to ask if I wanted to play drums with them or join another band. And I just didn't see that happening at the time. And I'd always come home from tours and recorded songs by myself, but that feeling was gone. Like I didn't really want to write or even listen to music, much less join a band and play in one. So it was strange, when your life is just pulled out from under you like that. I don't think anyone really thought much about what came next. We were sort of stuck in that moment. So eventually I kind of just pulled myself off the couch and thought, okay, I've always loved playing music and I've always loved writing and recording songs for myself. So I feel like I need to do that just for myself.
Well, is it true you got a postcard from a band called 7 Year who had been through a similar thing, right? They'd lost band members as well.
Yeah, that was soon after Kurt's memorial that I got that. It basically said, I know that you probably don't want to play music now, but you will, because that's how you get through these things. And I mean, it was a huge wake up call for me because they were right. I couldn't consider playing music at the time, and then I did realize that like that maybe that's the thing that's going to get me through this.
So can you remember the first time that I presume there was a period where you didn't even listen to anything on the radio, didn't play drums, didn't play guitar. Can you remember a time when you actually, after Kurt's death, picked up a guitar and finished a song for the first time, and how that felt?
Well, most of the songs on that first record had been around for a while. There were a couple that were newer. This Is a Call is probably the one song that like it had a different feel. It was a bit more uplifting than the other stuff that I'd written before, and especially coming after Kurt's death, This Is a Call was kind of like it was like a renewal or a reawakening where I actually found joy in playing and writing. So it's strange because when you're in that moment and you're in like a period of loss or grief or mourning, it's like you pick up an instrument and that just kind of spills out. And it serves as like an exorcism where it feels good because you're purging a lot of these feelings. But then it's also kind of a bummer, it's like, you don't want to, like every time I'd pick up a pen or a guitar and I'd start writing something, it was just depressing, and after a while I'm like, oh God, this is all, like, is that all I got? And then This Is a Call, something like that really, it just sort of felt okay. Even a song like Good Grief.
Yeah. No, go on. Good Grief.
Well, I think that one might have come later. That one was maybe after Kurt had passed away. I'm sure it was. At least the lyrics were. But it was, that was meant to represent like the joy of sadness in a way. Like just feeling good about feeling bad.
I always wondered what that line, the thought of being ousted comes and goes, was about.
Oh my God.
In
Well, I
that
mean, you
song.
have to like, I joined Nirvana. I was their fifth drummer, right? They'd had a team of drummers before me. And some of them were like, kind of more, I don't know, more in the band than others. But so when I joined the band, like I didn't know Chris and Kurt at all. And when we first met and started playing, it was clear that like when we got together to play, that it worked really well, and we sounded like what most people know now to sound like Nirvana. We sounded like that. But you just meet these people, and then it wasn't long. It was almost exactly a year from the time I joined to the time Nevermind came out. And then once it came out, it was like, things happened so quickly. The band got really big. But every band I'd been in before then was with like friends that I'd known for a really long time. And so there's some sort of like security in that. So when you join a band where you don't know anyone, and you're just starting to get to know each other, and it sounds great when you play music, you're just starting to get to know each other, but there's not like a deep personal connection. And then the band becomes really huge really quickly. You're just so nervous that you're going to either get fired or it's going to stop, or it's just like I didn't want to get fired basically. And so I was doing my best to like keep this thing from going away. So there was a
Yeah.
real insecurity that I had, like I'm not good enough. They're going to find somebody else.
In the course of doing the research for this interview, I wasn't quite aware of how many of the songs on the debut album, Foo Fighters' debut album, were written in 1990, 1991.
Yeah.
You have this burgeoning collection of really good tunes. Was there ever a moment where it was kind of like George in the Beatles coming up to kind of Abbey Road, where he's got these tunes and he can't fit them on a record, where you thought, hang on, I want to get these songs out, but with a songwriter as good as Kurt Cobain in the band, when is there ever going to be room for me?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really see myself fitting into like, a side B of the next single. I was like, I was totally fine playing the drums, and having been a drummer for a long time, I really like that was my reward, was being able to just play the drums on these songs. It was great. There were some songs that I had played for the guys. There were some songs that they enjoyed, but I didn't really want to put myself like try to like wedge myself into the creative process as like as a songwriter with lyrics and melodies and stuff like that. I was like, I'll leave that to Kurt. Like he's pretty good at it, so I'm just gonna play the drums. But
what comes through from me, and to kind of go back to something that you touched on before, is that the astounding thing about this Foo Fighters debut album is that it does sound so melodic and poppy and brash, and I don't want to say positive because that's not quite the right word, but it doesn't have its head in the sand. It's kind of it's the sound of somebody who's been through a lot but has come out the other side. That's what I get from that record, which I think is so interesting because a lot of American music at that point wasn't really sounding like that.
no, it's funny. Like I think that the songs that a songwriter writes should sort of mirror or reflect the type of person. It like there should be a connection. So I think that my music sounds like me, and I think that Kurt's music sounded like him, and I think that someone like Mark Lanigan's music sounds like him, or Jay Mascis sounds like him. Like so, yeah, it's been kind of a joke in the Foo Fighters for 25 years that we try to write something like really, really heavy and really dark, and it's inevitable that it comes out sounding the way that we do because, you know,
It's you. Yeah.
so it's like we'll write some crazy heavy riff and then I'll come up with a melody and the melody just sort of like brightens it in a way. I can't help it. Like it's just what happens.